This is the story about how a moment of terror I experienced when I was a child shaped who I became and how I finally, at age 62, was able to release this child from that trauma and thereby release myself. So at the time when this happened, I was 4 or 5 years old, and we were living in an apartment complex with a big playground where all the kids from the block could play. And I was playing there, and one day I was bullied there by another child, maybe a little older child, a boy. And when I wouldn't conform to what he wanted me to do, he became very angry. And he said he would kill me. And I remember I was scared. And I ran into my mother and I hid under the kitchen counter. And that moment I feared for my life. And I was totally in a state of panic. I was convinced that this boy would kill me. And even though I was sitting down there very afraid under the kitchen counter, my mother never really took care of my fear. And she never really realized what a dangerous predicament I was in. Of course, she tried to calm me down, but she did not help me handle the danger. And the result was that I felt totally alone with this. I was not seen for what I was feeling, and I was not, comforted, and I was not being felt that I was loved in that situation. And right there, in that moment of pure terror, something inside me shifted totally. And a part of me stayed frozen under that counter. And the whole trajectory of my life changes from there. I can see so many things in my life that point back to that specific moment. That's a point in time when this young guy, this young child, was sitting there scared under the counter. I learned at that moment that the world is dangerous and I can be killed anytime unless I conform to those bullies of the world, or just in general conform to the world. I learned that I have to adapt to become unnoticed so I won't be killed. And how crazy it may sound, that pattern has actually followed me to this day when I'm 62 years old. What happened was that I became someone who adapts, someone who reads the emotion of others and adjusts to them. Someone who makes himself small and unnoticed just to survive. Someone who lives according to the expectation of others rather than being himself. So that's what I did in my family, that's what I did in school, that is what I did at work, in relationship. That is the pattern I took with me through my life. So that person I showed the world was not me. I was a carefully constructed persona designed to keep me safe. A persona made as a way to survive in the world. And, I actually came to believe that this person, that this was my true self. It was all I knew to be true. And so it was. That's just how it is. So the cost of this, well, I was not living a fulfilled life. And all the time I've felt this void inside of me. And this yearning for something to give me purpose and to fill that emptiness. not just to be there to adapt to others, to be met, but to be myself. Because I was living as someone else. And my authentic self was still hiding under that kitchen counter, frozen at 4 years old, waiting for someone to come back for him and tell him that he was safe. So much happens to us when we are children that forms who we are, forms how we feel, and sets the path for our life. And the thing is, a child does not have the capacity to handle a trauma if it's not handled by the parents or other grown-ups around the child. It will become a trauma that follows this child for many years. And in the situation, the child needs to find a way to handle these feelings. And this often leads to patterns that the child will carry for the rest of their life. Their truth and their understanding of the world changes in that moment. And they adapt to it. And this adaptation process is very normal. Well, already as a child, you learn to adapt to your parents' emotions. And because this enables you to survive, because you need them to accept you, right? So you have to be like them. And this pattern of adapting to your surroundings, it continues through your childhood and probably into the adulthood as well. And for each of those traumas we left behind, it's like a part of us was left behind, and somehow our life path was changed based on that experience. And that part left behind, it must be revisited and integrated into the whole again. And the change in life path must be realized and seen before you're able to change it further forward in time. So these traumas, they become part of the filter you see the world through. They become something you will live with for many years. And they decide who you are in the world. And you believe them to be your true self. You don't doubt them. You accept them. This is just how it is. But it's not. It's not true. So much of the conditioned self was made during the childhood, where you adopted these norms and rules of your family and society. And this created this persona, this person, this personality you carry in the world. And I lived with this personality, that pattern, for 57 years. Why? Seems crazy, doesn't it? But the thing is that this personality, this persona, protected me. It kept me safe. It helped me survive. The world is dangerous. I can die. So letting go of that pattern, letting go of that persona and the whole personality felt dangerous. So if I stopped adapting, if I stopped making myself small, if I stopped conforming to what other people wanted, wouldn't I be killed? Wouldn't I be rejected, abandoned, destroyed? The child under the counter learned that being himself was dangerous. And that belief ran so deep that I couldn't question it. I couldn't see it. It was just the truth of how the world works. And the society actually reinforces this. Everywhere I looked, I saw that adapting was how you survive. You fit in, you conform, you become what others need you to be. I've done this my whole life. Everyone else does as well, so it's pretty normal, right? So I kept doing it. I kept living as this conditioned self believing that this was who I am. And until a certain time in life, I didn't know that my authentic self was waiting. I didn't know that my soul was calling me to be myself again. But things shift at a certain time in your life. And probably around the age of 50, we will somehow start this transformation into a self that is more in alignment with our soul. And to do that, it simply requires us to shed the old self, including those old beliefs and traumas that now has become blocks to integrating your soul into our lives. It's not possible. They are fear-based. The soul cannot live in fear-based patterns. And to me, this came as this feeling of not living a fulfilled life, yearning for something to give me purpose and fill that void inside of me. And this became bigger and bigger inside of me. And eventually it led me to spirituality and to working on my self-development. And we're simply called to live an authentic life after we've gone through living this conditioned life for many years. And it's an invitation to release the old and step into the new version of yourself that is far more authentic and reflects who you are on your soul level, who you are in truth. I usually say that this transformation is bringing heaven to earth so the two can become one. And to me, this simply means that you integrate your soul into your life in the world by leaving your old self behind and becoming this reflection of your soul here on earth. You integrate your soul qualities into your persona and you shine that light of the soul out in the world. This is a transformation from your fear-based conditioned self to a self in peace. Soul lives in peace, cannot live in fear, right? It's also a transformation from that persona built, for survival, to the authentic self that reflects your soul. It is not here for survival, it is here for creation. It's also this transformation from living according to others' expectations to living your truth. And that means you will always ask yourself, what do I want in this situation? And that decides where you go from there. So this is a beautiful purpose and invites you to be happy, living as your true self. It is a relief. You can let go of that fear. You can let go of that old self. But it requires you to let go of everything in you that is not in alignment with your true self. And this is all the fear-based beliefs and all the patterns you have adapted to fit in the world, including those old traumas. So it requires you to be whole again, to go back and retrieve those parts of yourself that were left behind, and to integrate them back into who you are. And for me, that meant returning to myself under that kitchen counter. And this is a necessary process of being whole again, to revisit those old trauma situations and give that part of you the love and understanding that they didn't receive at the time. That was what they needed. They just needed to be seen, heard, and given love. And it is as this part of you that was left behind has become, a kind of entity in itself. That part of you was left behind and is not a part of who you are now, because it's stuck in that period of time. It's stuck in that situation. And you have to integrate it back into who you are. So the qualities of that child, which was living my truth, can now be integrated in you again. So to integrate this part of yourself, you must make him feel safe. And then ask him to integrate with you, to be one with you again. I do this in meditation. I simply ask for that version of me to come forward. And then I can feel myself, standing in that kitchen looking at that scared boy under the counter. And I can tell him he's safe now. And I can ask him to tell me what he's afraid of. And then he can finally be seen. He can finally be heard. And when he's done, I can give him a hug. And I can tell him he's safe. I can tell him that I will protect him. And I can invite him to be one with me again. That's it. It's done. This is no longer preventing me from being who I truly am. That anger in time, that frozen fragment of me stuck in time, is now released. And so are the consequences of that situation. The more you integrate these traumas, the more whole you become again. And another big thing is that you're no longer limited by the beliefs that was connected to these traumas. It's gone. You can just let it go. And that void you felt, that yearning for purpose, it gets filled. Not from the outside, not by somebody giving me something, but from within. From integrating all these parts of yourself that was scattered and frozen in time. Stuck in whatever situation, whatever trauma they experienced. And in this period of transformation, my life has changed in most areas. And the person I am today is very different from who I was 15 years ago. But I'm still learning to live as someone who chooses authentically. And I'm still learning to live as myself, my true self. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.